Right now is where you shine. I'm talking here and now. I'm talking here and now.
Hey guys, it's Mr. Williams. I'm so excited. I met someone really cool today. I'm with the Honourable Julia Gillard. She was Prime Minister of Australia and she was the first female Prime Minister. Girls, how cool is that? So, very awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm delighted to be with you, Mr. Williams.
This is so cool. I know a lot of kids at our school, they think, wow, all these people on TV that when you grow up, that's not going to happen to them. And I was just curious, so what did you want to be when you grew up when you were a kid?
Well, it absolutely can happen to them because I was one of those kids. I grew up in an ordinary family in South Australia. We were a migrant family. My dad was a nurse. My mum worked as a cook in an aged care home. We grew up watching TV, doing normal things. And if anybody had suggested to me then that I was going to end up being Prime Minister, I would have just rolled my eyes and said, it's as ridiculous as saying I'm going to be an astronaut or something like that. Like, those things do not happen. And yet it did happen. So never...
It happens, eh?
Never be afraid to dream big.
That's awesome. And when did you decide to be a politician?
Well, it took a long time. When I was at school, if anybody ever asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up, the stereotypical question to children, I always used to say I wanted to be a teacher, and I did want to be a teacher. I could have been you.
That's so cool.
But towards the end of my schooling career, I got involved in debating, and it was suggested to me, maybe law, you'd be good at that. So I studied law. And when I was at university, I got involved in some student campaigns for better funding for universities. And then over my 20s, I got a bit more involved in public advocacy. And slowly, the idea came to me that if you really want to make a big difference to something that you care about, then politics can be a way of doing that. So there was no one light bulb moment, I want to go into politics. It was something that sort of evolved over a few years.
Okay, that's cool. So it's all right to not be sure, at the start.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to be sure at the start. And I know, we put a lot of pressure on young people, primary school, high school, year 12, you've got to make a decision. What are you going to study? And, yes, you should think about that hard, but there's plenty of options and choices. So if you don't get it right the first time, or if across your life journey something else comes up that really grabs your passion, then my advice would be go with it.
Oh, that's very cool. Did you ever get any advice that sticks in your brain from one of your teachers?
Yeah, lots of advice really, and I still think back on my teachers, and some of them were huge influences in my life. A deputy principal at my primary school, a man called Mr. Crow, really instilled in me and many other children a love of reading and learning, and it's been so important to me throughout my life to keep refreshing my ideas and reading and thinking. So you never stop growing, you never stop learning, and the genesis of that for me was at school, at primary school.
Yeah, like reading, so I hope you guys have done your reading tonight, because we read every day, in 1-2C. Do you have any favourite books that you remember when you were a kid that you could recommend?
Oh, look, I loved reading when I was young. I mean, these were in the days that you'd go to the public library and borrow books and have them for a week and take them back. I read all sorts of things from, murder mysteries and adventure stories and all of that. By the time I was in secondary school, books like The Grapes of Wrath really shaped my thinking, books that are about inequality and people doing it hard and people trying to find themselves in very adverse circumstances. So there's just a world of wonderful literature out there, Australian and, right across the world. Books like Cloud Street, Tim Winton's, I've loved across my life, and as I travel overseas, if people ever say to me, can you recommend an Australian author or an Australian book, a book like that I think is something that does us all proud.
We definitely need to Google that and find out what that looks like.
Well, I hope you do.
Well, that's so so cool to hear that from someone that's absolutely one of the most inspirational and amazing women in our country, that they still love to read books.
Absolutely.
So we've got no excuses. We're definitely doing our reading in class.
And you can always find the time. If I found time when I was Prime Minister to do a bit of reading, then there's definitely time when you're at school and you're supposed to be doing it.
Exactly. We have to read. You have to make time every single night. Now, speaking of that, if you could have, be a teacher for a day, what would your homework be to give my class tonight?
Oh, look, I think I'd probably be labelled as very old school. I'm a big believer in grammar and punctuation and putting apostrophes in the right spot. So
that's awesome. I'm not the only one.
So I think by the time I'd set the homework, they'd be very glad you were back the next day.
No, it's alright. So, tonight our homework is to focus on our punctuation, our apostrophes, our capital letters, everything.
Everything.
That's great. And before we go, we just have to know, what's your favourite colour?
I'd say favourite colour's probably green.
Green?
Green.
Very cool. It's half of the green and gold.
It certainly is half of the green and gold. And, it's part of the suffragette colours, women's movement, all of that. And, red hair, green goes well.
I tell you what, there's so many interesting things you've talked about, and I know we're going to have to go back and we're going to watch this again and find out all the words that we didn't mean. We might have to use a dictionary, but that's okay because we're trying to learn to grow up and do amazing things and help other people just like you've done. So on behalf of everyone at St. Michael's, thank you so much for making our country a better place. And is there anything that we can do, not waiting till we grow up, is there anything that my kids can do to be like you and make an impact and help others?
Oh, I think there's a lot of things kids can do. First, concentrate on your schooling, but I know right around the country kids come together and do some amazing fundraising for great charities. So maybe one thing to think about is a bit of a cause that people want to get involved in fundraising for. So kids, if that takes your fancy, please get involved. If you can make something better for just one person, then that's a very big start.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Julia Gillard. That was awesome. And guys, I'll see you in class. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thanks.
There is no better time. I'm talking here and now. I'm talking here and now. Let's go.